Well, hello, folks. There's a new person in the White House, so happy days. Obama 2.0, which is fine. The same people are in power. Our institutions are still less than perfect. And the voters, well, let's just say they could be better informed, perhaps. So what's going to change? I don't know. It's really a complex problem. But basically, when I think about all the conspiracy people preparing for revolution and civil war, all the preppers preparing for some kind of disaster, I always get confused, It's like we have all of these institutions that we fought for and died for and continue to fight for and die for. And supposedly we believe in them, whether it's a corporation or a brand or the Supreme Court or government bodies or NGOs or whatever, Anyway, you have organizations of people. Maybe they're not doing their best. Maybe they are corrupt. A lot of institutions are fumbling, corrupt, crumbling. But, they're there for a reason, because we can't live in a civilization of this scale without them. The alternative, of course, is to go back to a period of time when we lived in bands of 25 to 150 people and had very different lives. Not as complex. We weren't all walking around with computers in our pockets and, ordering from Amazon and having wonderful things delivered to our door. We weren't sending rovers to Mars and building space stations depending on satellites. We hunted, we gathered, we competed with other groups and tribes and so on. Whatever. Was it more violent back in the day? Yeah, sure. It was rough. People were illiterate. They had their religion and their rituals to depend on, their magic and so on. Today, lifespans have increased, maybe health spans too. Before the coronavirus, we were traveling around on airplanes like, it was cheap. Not like in the 60s, where it cost a lot of money and you had to dress up and you smoked cigarettes when you were on board and got really, really drunk. But, you could wander around and take your trips and everything. We're spoiled. We take a lot for granted. And then when things don't go our way, when times are tough, we find somebody to blame. So it's the government, the deep state. It's Q points his finger here, there, and somewhere else, and everybody gets on board. And these conspiracy theories, you got to remember, they've been around forever. They're constantly rebranded. I've said that before, but really, honestly. So in 5 years after the first term of Biden, they're just going to call it something else. People who are oppressed, who are pissed off, who are ignorant, poorly educated, badly programmed. I'm sorry, but most of us are. I'm certainly not the best educated person in the world, but incurious, stubbornly ignorant, don't want to know, not going to read a book. I was flabbergasted at journalists asking members of the insurrection questions like, have you read the Constitution or the Bill of Rights? Of course they haven't. I mean, really, honestly, So you don't know political philosophy. You don't understand civics, You don't get this Alexa de Tocqueville excitement when you see American society in all their civic responsibility, glory. None of that. You don't even know what that is. People don't know how anything works. And so they're confused, and they're frightened, and they're angry. And all the people I listen to talk about limbic hijack, fight or flight. And of course we have huge global corporations that know how to play us like a fiddle on social networks and so on. Gosh. So we're going to prep for disaster, hoping that we have enough food in the cellar, in the root cellar, to last a year when the shit hits the fan. But we're not going to educate ourselves so that we can contribute to the project of improving our institutions, making them better, forming a more perfect union. We heard all these fine words yesterday, and I loved it, the prayers and the poems and the speeches. And it's veering towards normalcy now, which is great. But at the same time, I was thinking, really, it's nice that the lunatic is out and we don't have to be bothered by his bullshit anymore. And I don't even have to think about him going forward, which is exciting. It's going to make my life much better. Because he was an annoying man, very, very annoying, to say the least, to be quite generous. Anyway, he's gone and a new guy's in, but the same people are running the show. And our institutions are in trouble. And if we live in a democracy, that means the demos, you and me, have to get involved so that we're part of the kratos, right? The power. Then maybe we can contribute to improving our system structurally at its core. But to do that, we have to educate ourselves. So how do you inspire people who are so excited by Alex Jones to educate themselves? You know, you can share things with people. You can beg them to take a look at this book or that, at this paper or that paper. They're not going to do it unless they really, really want to or have to. If they feel the need deep down inside. You can't just make people curious. So it's going to be tough. The next 4 years, we're going to see a lot of really, really pissed off Trumpsters and white supremacists and whatever, Antifa people. The tectonic plates are moving away from each other now, even more so. I mean, I remember how some friends of mine really were pissed off when Obama got elected. They just hated that guy, you know, for whatever reason. And the Republican Party isn't going to have to come to at the real Jesus moment and suddenly say, ooh boy, we really do need to cooperate with Democrats, because their constituency, they hate us. They've been taught to hate Democrats. I'm not a Democrat, but they've been taught to hate the other side, right? And they've been taught to fear and to be really, really pissed off. And a lot of people just believe that anybody who doesn't think like the way they think are Satanists. Really, they do. I mean, you're possessed by the devil, demons. And you say, well, why don't you read Carl Sagan's Demon Haunted World then and see what you think? No, they're not going to do that. So this culture war problem is going to continue and be exacerbated by the internet and social media and mainstream media and all of it. We're never going to get to the bottom of it. And it's going to be this terrible struggle of people who will take vaccinations and who won't, and who will obey a lockdown and who won't. And there's going to be this incredible debate about it. Deaths per 100,000 and whatever. It's never going to end. And once people get into their conspiratorial mindset, you know, the cognitive dissonance is so strong and you're so stubborn, you just can't let go of it, you know. So you have to say, look, Klaus and Bill Gates and the Bilderbergs and the Davos crowd and the Fed and the World Bank, these people are all, you know, taking control. I mean, it's martial law already. We've lost all our freedoms. It's all over. It's a hopeless, helpless, powerless way to be, way to think, but that's it. And the only power you have is knowing what the truth is, being a truther. You know who's fucking us. And then you get so powerless and hopeless that you decide that human beings deserve it. We really should burn down the world because we're all such dumb idiots, you know? Which is sad. It's a sad way to live. As opposed to saying, well, you know, I can think. I've got a good brain. I'm a very special genius. I can educate myself. I can use the interwebs and the tubes to educate myself and learn about how things work. And maybe I can work in community with other people to improve things before the shit hits the fan, before there's a nuclear war, before we completely melt down the earth with our carbon emissions. We're killing habitat. Species are disappearing right and left. It's not good. Biodiversity is necessary. People are going insane. We're hoping we're going to find magic bullets, you know, if we microdose on mushrooms or something, everything's going to get clear, you know. We have magic drugs and magic vaccines and all of that kind of stuff. It is true, people are corrupt and greedy and bureaucracies are rarely very efficient, but that's all we've got at this scale. Maybe we do have to have a mass die-off so we can live simpler, better lives. I don't know. But how can you compare what happened 200 or 300 or 400 years ago with what you know now? This is all you know. TV and YouTube and iPhones and instant this, that, the other thing, and being able to, you know, jet off to Morocco whenever you feel like it if you have some money, you know, getting pissed off at billionaires. And really, honestly, I mean, if you were lucky enough to be born into a family where you could have good love and support and get a good education, whatever, you're still funneled into this system that really turns us all into slaves in some way, shape, or form. But we can have some agency and sovereignty only insofar as we can know what's going on in our lives, you know? Be aware of what's happening in the world. Stand up and face reality. So, if you're prepping, keep your sense of humor. Be a good storyteller. Know how to make friends and influence people because you're going to need them. You're going to need people. I keep saying this, but it's really in my head now because the whole last year was insane. And I was confronted with so many friends who are conspiracy-minded people. And there were so many narratives going on, and it is hard to peel it all back and say, what is the science? How do I know it's the science, you know? And all the conflicts of interest, they do exist, you know? And I was worried about that for a long time, for decades, but, you know, what are you going to do? Whew. This situation didn't go away with all those pretty speeches and poems. It's still here, and after 100 days, it's still going to be here. And maybe Trump and his people will start a new party, and the Republican Party will die. Who knows what'll happen? But that doesn't mean that the Democratic Party is that much better. It could use some help, in my opinion. Also, at this scale of life, which is really global, we're going to have to learn how to work with each other across, you know, nation states, across cultures. Sorry, there just is no purity. You can't find it. If you want to have your pure life in some way, like you're a Quaker or a Seventh-day Adventist or, you know, Watchtower person, or if Reverend Sun Myung Moon was the second coming, or if Joe Biden is the answer to all your prayers, or Donald Trump is God's instrument, or whatever it is, You're not going to find that purity. It doesn't exist. You can't build that town out in the frontier and say, you're not welcome here, This is for us and us alone. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen unless billions of us die. And I don't think we want that, do we? I mean, what we're really gambling here is our future. That's what we're doing. And the only way to get a grasp on how to have a future for humanity is to get real busy educating ourselves. And I'm not saying listening to more YouTube segments. Oops, what a hypocrite I am. I'm saying figure out how to find good books and read them. Figure out how to find good online courses and take them. There are so many. And find communities of curious people that are sincere and honest and humble and want to help you learn something. Any skill is great, obviously, but really, figure out how this world works economically. Figure out what it takes to have the commodities we have to fuel the industries that we have. Understand who is in control, who has the power. And if you know these things, maybe you can take back some of that power and have an influence on it. That's democracy. It's not just voting. It's being an active member of society, engaging in civil society. And so the only way we're going to beat or dampen down the existential risks that we're facing, and maybe stop these terrible things from happening and make a better world, as if we're part of the solution. I mean, all of us have to do something besides pointing the finger at other people and blaming whatever. This, that, the other thing, the immigrants, the bureaucrats, Washington, D.C., Cuomo, the Republicans. It's exhausting. It's not going to go away. I hope this year we can just try to make things better in our own life and then share that. This is how I made things better in my own life. And this is what I'm doing in my community to let our representatives and our leaders know that they work for us. A lot of people talk about this in different ways, better than I do, but it's all out there. Some kind of motivation and incentive to make things right in a positive way. So keep your sense of humor and keep your sense of vitality. Don't let it get you down, all of this noise, and recognize that there's just so much good stuff out there, and it's all right at your fingertips if you want it. So if you see one of them, if you engage with the other, do it in good faith. Give it a chance, I hope, because I'm really worried that, Biden's in the White House, nobody cares. The war's gonna continue, and it's just gonna get worse. I don't wanna see that happen, all right? I thank you if you listen to this. Take good care, keep in touch. Buyanti out.